Could we call this Saturday coming up Separation Saturday here in Week 7? It kind of feels that way, and I think we're going to learn a lot about the playoff race, especially this week and next week. When you look at Week 7 and Week 8, I think we're going to have a very clear picture of the playoff race, who the real contenders are, who the national championship contenders are. Again, this college football picture, there's still a lot of unknowns, but I think we're really going to find out a lot. So I almost didn't do an updated video this week because I really wanted to see at least this next week before I made any major moves. But there is one team that stood out to me last week, and when you look at their schedule moving forward, this team stands out to me as a team that I think has a really, really good shot at getting to the playoff, a team that I really haven't had in there at all. I looked at them in the preseason, but didn't really consider them too strongly then. But now I do have this team in the playoffs, so you'll find out exactly who that team is here in this video. Let's get started with the automatic qualifiers, the conference champions. I've got Ohio State out of the Big Ten, Texas out of the SEC, and Miami out of the ACC. For Ohio State, I don't think they're going to lose a game. I think they're going to beat Oregon on Saturday, and I think they're going to beat them again in the Big Ten Championship. They might lose. If they're going to lose to Oregon, I think it might be this weekend, though, and then they win a rematch in the Big Ten Championship. Either way, I think an undefeated or one-loss Ohio State team gets the 1 seed. Texas at number 2. I do think they'll slip up and lose somewhere. I don't think they're going to go undefeated. So I've got Texas at 11-1 and then winning the SEC Championship. I'm not going to tell you who I have them beating just yet. So we've made one change here, and some of you have kind of pointed this out, and I really hadn't even thought about it. And then the more I did think about it, the more I thought, you know what? If Boise State runs the table, they're going to be ranked ahead of the Big 12 champion. So I've got Boise State now as the 4 seed, Utah as the 12 seed. And again, I don't know who my pick really is in the Big 12. It's like I have no idea right now, so I'm just sticking with the team that I've had there in Utah. But I may change that here in the next week or two. I think I might have a better idea of who I'm going to predict. But again, we're just going to leave it at Utah right now. But I think whoever it is out of the Big 12, they finish with 2 or 3 losses. And I think Boise State with the 1 loss to Oregon, and that's their only loss, and Oregon finishes in the top 10, I think that's going to be enough for Boise State to actually be ranked ahead of the Big 12 champion. So, I think the Big 12 champion winds up ranked probably outside the top 15. Boise State's probably closer to the top 10. So that's how I think it's going to play out as of right now. Then you also have to look at the possibility that, what if Navy goes undefeated? What if Memphis wins out? They win the American. Could we see one of those teams take one of these spots and Utah doesn't even get in? No Big 12 team gets in. That could happen. Again, you look at the rules. It says the top 5 conference champion. It does not say it has to be the 4 Power 4 teams, Power 4 conference champions, and then another. It just says the top 5 conference champions. So, yeah, that's a possibility as well. Again, I think the next couple of weeks are going to tell us a lot more. It's going to be a little bit more clear. Right now, we're still in prediction mode, almost the same as we were in the preseason. Yeah, we know a little bit more about these teams, but some big tests coming up. So let's get to the at-large teams now. I've got Oregon at number 5. So whether they beat Ohio State and then lose the Big Ten Championship, or maybe even lose both times, I still think they're going to be ranked high enough because I think these other teams are going to have 2 losses at least. They get in the playoffs. So, yeah, I think Oregon, and I don't think the committee is going to penalize teams that lose in conference championship games much, if at all. So I think Oregon losing the Big Ten Championship, they're not going to drop, and they're going to stay right there at number 5. So we got the Ducks, and how about that? Oregon and Utah in the playoff. We saw them, of course, battle many times in the Pac-12, so that would be a fun matchup there. And then we go to the number 16. I've got the Georgia Bulldogs at number 6. I think they're going to lose to Texas probably, or lose somewhere along the way, but if I had to pick it right now, it'd be Texas. I think they probably beat Ole Miss, lose to Texas, or maybe you flip that around. Maybe they beat Texas, they lose to Ole Miss. I think 10-2 though, and I think the fact that the way they lost to Alabama and they came back and they had a chance to win, I think that their 2 losses are going to be really good losses, and I think they're going to be the highest ranked 10-2 team out of the SEC because I think we're going to have a few of those. So Georgia at 6, and then we're going Tennessee at number 7. I know they lost to Arkansas, but I actually thought they would lose to a game like that. Maybe not Arkansas, but somewhere on the schedule. I thought they would trip up, and I thought they'd lose to Georgia, or I thought maybe they would lose to Alabama. But now after watching Alabama struggle with Vandy, Tennessee gets them at home. I'm going to say Tennessee probably wins that game, loses to Georgia, and the Vols finish 10-2. And again, that head-to-head over Alabama will be the difference to get them up to number 7. Number 8, Clemson. I think the Clemson Tigers, again, I've said this since the preseason. I haven't changed my prediction at all on Clemson. I think they go 11-1 with the only loss coming to Georgia, and then they lose to Miami in the ACC Championship. I think that'll be enough to get them in here at number 8. And the number 9 team, Alabama. I think the Crimson Tide, they're going to get penalized for losing to Vanderbilt. That's going to hurt them a little bit in these rankings. The win over Georgia is great, but you can't go head-to-head with Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama because they would all have wins and losses against each other. You could say, well, Georgia beat Tennessee and Alabama beat Georgia, but Tennessee beat you can't just go by head-to-head in those rankings. So I think Alabama winds up at number 9. They're going to go on the road to face Clemson. Number 10, so this is my new team in these rankings. It's Texas A&M. Texas A&M really impressed me against Missouri. With Connor Wigman back at quarterback, I think this team gets to Atlanta. Yeah, you heard me. I think Texas A&M goes to the SEC Championship. I think they're going to lose a game somewhere, but I think all these other teams in the SEC will have 2 losses, except for Texas, and we get Texas A&M 2 weeks in a row. That is my current prediction. Again, you look at Texas A&M, they've got South Carolina and Auburn on the road. Those could be tricky games. They get LSU at home, and then they get Texas at home. They might pull off a win in that game. So I've got the Aggies getting in here, and the schedule is not too bad for them. So that's why I think they dropped to number 10. And again, they would also have 3 losses with the loss in the conference championship game. And then number 11 is Penn State. I still think Penn State's a 10-2 team. If they lose to USC, they can still get to 10-2. I mean, I think Ohio State's going to beat them. And again, I think they'll slip up somewhere. Maybe it's to USC, maybe it's somewhere else on the schedule. But I've got Penn State at number 11, 10-2 overall, and a pretty manageable schedule for the Nittany Lions. So let's get into these games now. Not going to spend much time. Just this is not the actual playoff field, so there's no point in spending a ton of time on these matchups. I think Alabama's would be good enough to beat Clemson even on the road, so I'd go Crimson Tide in that game to advance to play Ohio State. How about that matchup? Oregon, too much for Utah. Give me the Ducks in that one. They'll get a rematch with Boise State, so that's interesting. Tennessee, Texas A&M. Boy, I was back and forth on this one. Based on what I saw this past week, I think Tennessee might struggle in a game like this, but I think home field advantage might be enough for them. I'm going to go with the Vols here, and then we get Georgia, Penn State. Hard to pick against Kirby Smart. I think this Georgia team will get better and better as, I think they're going to lose to Texas possibly, but then after that, they go on a run, they get better and better, and they finish the season really strong. And so I think at home they beat Penn State. You got Ohio State and Alabama. Good matchup here. I think Ohio State's the better team. I'm going to go with the Buckeyes in that one. Oregon, Boise State. I think Oregon plays better in this matchup, and they win over Boise State. And again, I think it'll be more like a 2-touchdown win this time. Then you've got Texas, Tennessee. A good matchup here, but I think Texas has too much overall. I think they'll get the win over Tennessee. Then you got Georgia, Miami. Georgia way too much here in this one. Unless Cam Ward just plays amazing, I think Georgia wins this game. Then Ohio State, Oregon for the 3rd time. Give me the Buckeyes here, and maybe it's 3-0 against Oregon this year. I think that could happen. So Ohio State there. Texas, Georgia. Again, it's hard for me to pick against Kirby Smart in a playoff game. It just feels like they'd have the advantage here. Texas, boy, I'm back and forth on this one. This is a really tough pick for me. So yeah, I went back and forth. But for now, I'm going to go Georgia, the team that I trust a little bit more. And then, again, this has been my championship matchup now for the last several weeks. I'm sticking with Ohio State. Haven't seen anything to make me change my mind. When we see them play Oregon this weekend, maybe I will change my mind if they don't look as good as I expect them to. But yeah, right now, sticking with Ohio State. It's been my pick all year. We did this with Michigan last year. I stuck with them all year. They won the national championship, so we'll see if it works that way with Ohio State this year. Those are my updated playoff predictions. What are your playoff predictions? Let me know down in the comments below.